Please be part of our success story that we will tell someday by subscribing, liking, and sharing the work of this channel. We want to grow with you from the beginning. Now, let's break down the book chapter by chapter. Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen. Introduction. This book was written to help you find everything you've been searching for and the answers to all the questions you've had your entire life. I understand this is a bold statement, but you will shortly see why I have complete confidence in saying this. What I know to be true from the depths of my soul is that you will not be the same person after you read this book. The only constant is change, and growth is an inevitable part of life. It will be impossible for you not to change after reading this book. We cannot change what we are not aware of, and once we are aware, we cannot help but change. Sheryl Sandberg quoted in the text, "No matter who you are, where you're from, your background, what you've done or haven't done, or what status or wealth you have, you can find total peace, unconditional love, complete fulfillment, and abundant joy in your life." The author promises that you are not the exception. Love knows no boundaries. An open mind and willing heart are enough to receive the answers you're looking for. Nguyen goes on to describe that there are practical benefits people experience after internalizing the book's principles, such as increases in income and creativity, improved health and relationships, cessation of destructive habits, and more. But he cautions that these external outcomes are only byproducts of the deeper inner shift the book teaches. The real goal is to uncover the feelings you truly want in life: peace, joy, love, which are not actually attained through external achievements, but through understanding your own inner experience. He emphasizes that readers should read the book for insight, not information, because true understanding comes from within, not from memorizing words on a page. The answers already exist deep inside each person. This book is simply a guide to help you find them. Nguyen also reminds readers that truth cannot be intellectualized or broken into complex ideas. Truth is simple and is experienced as a feeling. When that feeling of peace and clarity arises, it will feel both familiar and unfamiliar, like coming home. Finally, he expresses gratitude to you, the reader, for your time and attention, noting that your engagement is a gift both to him and to yourself, and encourages you to approach the book with openness and intention. Chapter 1. The Journey to Finding the Root Cause of Suffering. 1. What suffering really means. In this chapter, Nguyen defines what he means by suffering, and importantly, distinguishes it from pain. Pain is a physical or emotional experience that happens to everyone, e.g., losing someone, getting sick. Suffering is the mental, psychological reaction that arises after pain. It's the stories, judgments, anxiety, fear, and regret we add mentally to what happens. He argues that while pain is unavoidable, suffering is optional. It depends on how we respond mentally. 2. The author's personal search. Nguyen takes readers through his own journey, trying many approaches to end his suffering. Reading self-help books, meditation, lifestyle changes, therapy, and spiritual practices. Despite improvement in some life areas, he still felt inner anxiety, frustration, and emptiness. This long search led him to a deeper question: why does suffering persist even after all external remedies? He realized the source of suffering wasn't circumstances or habits. It was how he was relating to his own thinking. 3. Pain versus suffering, the two arrows. Nguyen draws on a Buddhist analogy. First arrow, the initial painful event, e.g., heartbreak, loss. Second arrow, the mental reaction, fear, self-recrimination, rumination, that magnifies the pain into suffering. He emphasizes, we cannot control the first arrow, but we can influence or even choose not to fire the second one. This distinction is foundational. Suffering arises after the event in the mind. 4. Suffering is human, but optional. The book confronts a common belief. Suffering is just part of life. Nguyen doesn't deny that pain exists, but he says, you feel pain because of events. You suffer because of your thinking about those events. This is the chapter's core insight. You're not powerless. Suffering isn't just fate or circumstance. It's shaped by the mind's interpretation. 5. Thought and emotional experience. A major point introduced here, which sets up later chapters, is that feelings don't come from life events directly. They come from thoughts about those events. Nguyen includes illustrations like, two people in the same situation can experience totally different emotional states because their thinking differs. What feels like reality is actually a thought-created interpretation of reality. This reframes suffering not as something happening to us, but something happening inside us through thought. 6. Understanding the mind is the first step. The chapter ends by introducing the core journey of the book. If we want to end psychological suffering, we must first understand the nature of thought, not just treat symptoms like anxiety, stress, or fear. Nguyen suggests that real freedom comes from discovering where experience actually comes from, inside the mind, and how thinking creates our internal experience of life. Chapter 2. The root cause of all suffering. 1. We live in a world of thought, not objective reality. Nguyen begins by asserting a profound idea. What we experience as reality is not objective reality itself, but our interpretation of it through thought. Even though two people may be in the same situation, for example, sitting in a coffee shop, their inner experiences can be totally different based on what they're thinking. One person might feel overwhelmed and anxious. Another might be peaceful and content. Their external environment is identical, but their experience differs because of their thinking. This illustrates the central claim. Suffering doesn't come from events themselves. It comes from our thoughts about those events. 2. Thought creates our emotional experience. Nguyen emphasizes that we only ever feel what we are thinking. External circumstances, like jobs, relationships, money, health, or social situations, are neutral facts without intrinsic emotional meaning. It's our thoughts about these circumstances that generate emotional responses such as anxiety, frustration, joy, or peace. For instance, money might mean freedom and security to one person and greed or stress to another. Yet the money itself hasn't changed. A job might feel fulfilling to someone who loves it and miserable to someone else, though the tasks are the same. This shows that feelings are generated internally, not imposed externally, and that's why suffering can vary so dramatically from person to person. 3. Suffering is a psychological, not external phenomenon. Nguyen's key insight is that suffering is not caused by the events themselves, but by how the mind interprets and attaches meaning to events. This is similar to the idea from Buddhist psychology, the second arrow, but Nguyen frames it in terms of thought creation. The first arrow, painful events, is inevitable. The second arrow, psychological suffering, comes from internal thinking and reaction. The second arrow is optional because it arises from thought, not from reality itself. 4. Interpretation shapes emotional reality. The chapter illustrates how different interpretations of the same fact create different realities. Human perception is meaning-making. Our beliefs, assumptions, past experiences, and mental filters shape how we see the world. What one person interprets as a setback, another might see as an opportunity, even if the circumstances are the same. This reinforces the point that suffering is created inside, through thinking, rather than outside in the world. 5. The moment you stop thinking, happiness begins. Nguyen suggests that the habitual human condition, constantly interpreting, judging, anticipating, or worrying, is what keeps suffering alive. When we drop the ongoing mental commentary, the thinking about thinking, we stop layering meaning and emotional weight onto neutral events. In that quieted state of mind, peace and happiness naturally emerge, not as something to manufacture, but simply as the absence of unnecessary mental suffering. This sets up the central practice the book explores later, learning to see thought for what it is and not believing every thought you have. Chapter 3. Why do we even think? 1. The mind evolved for survival, not happiness. Nguyen begins by explaining that thinking is a biological function that evolved to help humans stay alive. Our ancestors needed to anticipate dangers like predators, solve practical problems, finding food, shelter, and navigate social dynamics for group survival. Because of this, the human mind became excellent at scanning the environment for threats, comparing what it sees to past experiences, and imagining possible future dangers. This survival-oriented thinking was vital in the past, but in the modern world, where literal life or death threats are rare, it tends to overshoot its purpose. Threat detection becomes excessive rumination about work, relationships, social rejection, finances, etc., even when no real danger exists. 2. Thinking keeps us in fight or flight mode. Nguyen points out that because the mind is wired for survival, it interprets neutral or ambiguous situations as potential threats, even when there isn't anything harmful happening. As a result, the mind stays in a chronic fight or flight mode, constantly scanning for danger, worrying about past mistakes, imagining future disasters, and replaying negative scenarios that might never happen. This ongoing survival mode thinking creates anxiety, fear, frustration, and stress, emotions that were useful only when real danger was imminent. 3. Thinking doesn't help us thrive, it just helps us survive. An important idea in this chapter is that thinking's original job was survival, not joy, fulfillment, or creativity. The mind will always assume something is a threat because that's what it was built to do. There's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's just the mind doing its job. But if we rely entirely on this ancient mechanism in a modern context, we stay stuck in unnecessary emotional reactions and mental noise, even when there's no real threat. 4. Thinking projects the past into the future. Nguyen explains that the mind doesn't just react to the present. It constantly performs mental simulations based on past experiences and memories. Instead of fully experiencing the moment, the mind recalls painful or stressful events from the past, predicts future problems, generates hypothetical negative scenarios, and treats them as if they are happening now. This constant mental replay clouds our experience of reality and keeps us attached to fear and resistance, even though past and future thoughts are not happening in the present moment. 5. Understanding why we think helps us step back from it. The chapter doesn't say that thinking is useless. Instead, Nguyen asserts that thinking is a tool, not the foundation of experience. Once we see that the mind's purpose is survival, not happiness, we stop blaming ourselves for overthinking. We stop identifying every mental narrative as truth, and we begin to realize that we don't have to be ruled by our thoughts. This recognition, that thinking is an old biological survival mechanism, creates the psychological distance necessary to loosen the mind's grip and reduce suffering. Chapter 4. Thoughts versus thinking. 1. What is a thought? A thought is spontaneous, automatic, fleeting, neutral by nature. Thoughts simply appear in the mind without effort. You don't choose most of them. Examples. I might fail. What if something goes wrong? I shouldn't have said that. When emphasis. Thoughts are not the problem. They're a natural function of the brain. You cannot stop thoughts from arising, just like you cannot stop clouds from appearing in the sky. 2. What is thinking? Thinking is what happens after a thought appears. Thinking is engaging with the thought, analyzing it, judging it, believing it, replaying it, building stories around it. Example. Thought. I might fail. Thinking. Why do I always fail? This will ruin my life. What will people think of me? Thinking is prolonged attention to thought. This is where suffering begins. 3. Thoughts are innocent. Thinking creates suffering. Nguyen's key insight. Suffering is not caused by thoughts, but by thinking. Thoughts come and go naturally. When we don't engage, they pass on their own. When we believe and ruminate, they grow stronger. Just like a spark is harmless. A fire starts when you keep feeding it. Thinking is what feeds the spark. 4. Why thinking feels so real? Thinking feels convincing because the mind speaks in your voice. Thoughts feel personal. The brain treats imagined threats as real. So when you think, this is bad, I'm not enough, something terrible will happen, your body reacts with anxiety, fear, Stress, even though nothing is happening right now. 5. Identification. I am my thoughts. Nguyen explains that most suffering comes from identifying with thoughts. Instead of, I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough. We believe, I'm not good enough. This identification turns temporary mental events into personal truths, traps us inside our thinking, makes thoughts feel permanent and defining. 6. Awareness breaks the cycle. The solution is not to fight thoughts. When emphasis, don't suppress thoughts. Don't replace them with positive ones. Don't analyze them. Instead, notice the difference between having a thought and thinking about it. The moment you observe a thought without engaging, thinking stops naturally. Awareness dissolves, thinking the way light dissolves darkness, effortlessly. 7. Non-thinking is not no thoughts. A critical clarification. Non-thinking is not equal to empty mind. Non-thinking equals no attachment to thoughts. Thoughts may still appear, but you don't follow them. You don't argue with them. You don't believe them automatically. This creates calm, clarity, presence, peace. 8. Why this distinction changes everything. Once you understand thoughts versus thinking, you stop blaming yourself for overthinking. You stop believing every mental story. You experience thoughts with less emotional charge. Suffering naturally decreases. You realize you are the awareness observing thought, not the thought itself. Chapter 5. Do we need positive thinking to feel good? This chapter challenges the popular idea of positive thinking and explains why trying to think better thoughts often backfires. 1. The common assumption. Positive thoughts equals positive feelings. Nguyen starts by addressing a widely held belief. If thoughts create feelings, then to feel good, we must think positive thoughts. This idea fuels affirmations, motivational self-talk, mental reframing, forcing optimism. At first glance, it seems logical, but Nguyen argues that this approach keeps us trapped in the same system that causes suffering. 2. Positive thinking is still thinking. The core insight of this chapter. Positive thinking is still thinking, and thinking is the source of suffering. Whether thoughts are negative, I'm failing, or positive, I'm amazing, they still require effort, control, mental engagement, belief. This keeps attention locked inside the mind rather than freeing it. 3. Why positive thinking often fails. Nguyen explains several reasons why forced positivity doesn't work long-term. A. The mind knows when you're lying. If your experience doesn't match the positive thought, the mind resists. Example. Reality. You feel anxious. Thought. I'm calm and confident. This creates internal conflict, not peace. B. Positive thinking strengthens the ego. Positive thinking reinforces the belief. I must fix myself. Something is wrong with how I feel. I need better thoughts to be okay. This keeps suffering alive by implying you are incomplete without mental control. C. You become afraid of negative thoughts. When positivity becomes the goal, negative thoughts feel dangerous. Fear of thinking wrong, thoughts increases. Mental tension grows. Ironically, this creates more anxiety, not less. 4. Feelings don't improve by changing thoughts. They improve by dropping thinking. Nguyen makes a subtle but powerful distinction. Changing thoughts equals staying engaged with thinking. Dropping thinking equals allowing thoughts to pass. Peace doesn't come from better content in the mind. It comes from less involvement with content altogether. 5. What actually happens when thinking stops? When thinking quiets, emotions settle naturally. Clarity returns. Joy appears without effort. When emphasis, peace, love, and fulfillment are default states, not achievements. They don't need to be created. They are revealed when mental noise subsides. 6. Emotions are signals, not problems. Instead of fixing emotions with positive thoughts, Nguyen suggests, emotions simply reflect the level of thinking. Negative emotions signal overengagement with thought. They're guides, not enemies. When thinking drops, emotions recalibrate automatically. 7. Non-resistance is the key. The chapter encourages allowing thoughts instead of fighting them, allowing feelings instead of suppressing them. Resistance fuels thinking. Acceptance dissolves it. This doesn't mean passivity. It means non-interference with mental processes. 8. The paradox. Stop trying to feel better. Nguyen highlights a paradox. The more you try to feel better, the more thinking you create. When you stop trying, thinking loosens. Effort drops. Peace emerges on its own. Chapter 6. How the human experience is created. The 3 principles. This chapter explains why thoughts feel real and how our moment-to-moment experience of life is formed. Nguyen introduces the 3 principles, originally articulated by Sydney Banks, as a simple framework for understanding human experience. The 3 principles explained. 1. Mind. Mind is the universal life, energy, or intelligence behind all experience. It is not your personal brain. It is the source of consciousness, creativity, intuition, and insight. 2. Consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to be aware. It allows us to feel, perceive, and experience life. It brings thoughts to life. Without consciousness, thoughts would be meaningless. Analogy. A movie projector, consciousness, projects images, thoughts, onto a screen experience. Without the projector on, there is no movie. 3. Thought. Thought is the creative mechanism that forms our experience. Thoughts are neutral, temporary mental events. Through consciousness, they become felt experiences. Thought creates emotions, perceptions, and personal reality. Key insight. We don't experience life directly. We experience thought about life. How the 3 principles work together. Mind supplies intelligence and life energy. Thought creates mental content. Consciousness makes that content feel real. Together, they create emotions, beliefs, moods, perceptions, suffering, or peace. Nothing outside these principles creates your internal experience. Why this ends the search. Nguyen explains that once you understand this, you stop blaming circumstances. You stop fixing yourself. You stop chasing happiness externally. Because you see, your experience is always an inside-out creation. Peace isn't something to get. It's something to notice when thinking settles. How to apply Chapter 6 practically in daily life. Here's how to live this chapter, not just understand it. 1. When you feel overwhelmed, what usually happens? You analyze the situation. You blame circumstances. You try to fix your feelings. Apply the 3 principles. Pause and remind yourself. This feeling is coming from thought, not reality. Don't argue with the thought. Let it pass. Result. Emotional intensity softens naturally. 2. In stressful situations. Example. Work pressure, conflict, money worries. Practice. Ask gently. What am I thinking right now? Not to change it, just to notice it. Awareness alone reduces identification, quiets thinking, restores clarity. 3. When negative emotions appear. Instead of, I shouldn't feel this way, I need to fix this. Try. This emotion is a signal that thinking is high. Then, stop engaging. Stop fixing. Allow the feeling. Emotions settle when thinking settles. 4. Decision-making. When confused or anxious about decisions, don't decide from a noisy mind. Wait for calm. When clarity comes after thinking quiets, not before. Decisions made from calm feel obvious and light. 5. Relationships. When triggered by others, recognize, I'm reacting to my thinking, not the person. This reduces blame, increases compassion, prevents escalation. 6. Daily reminder practice. Simple. Once or twice a day, pause and reflect. My experience is being created from the inside. I don't need to fix my thoughts. Peace returns when thinking slows. This gentle reminder trains awareness naturally. Common misunderstandings cleared up. Thoughts cause suffering. Believing and engaging with thoughts causes suffering. I must control my mind. Understanding brings natural calm. This means I shouldn't think. Thinking is fine. Identification is the issue. Chapter 7. How do we stop thinking? This chapter answers one of the most common and misunderstood questions in the book. Nguyen's short answer is, you don't stop thinking by trying to stop thinking. Trying to stop thinking creates more thinking. 1. Why trying to stop thinking doesn't work. When people hear thinking causes suffering, they often try to silence the mind, force mental control, suppress thoughts. But Nguyen explains, effort equals thinking, control equals thinking, suppression equals resistance, which fuels thinking. The mind reacts like, don't think, thinks even more. 2. Thinking stops naturally when you stop feeding it. Nguyen uses a simple principle. Thoughts survive on attention. When you engage, they grow. When you observe, they fade. Just like a fire dies without fuel. A wave settles when not resisted. Thinking slows down on its own when you stop interacting with it. 3. The key is awareness, not effort. The solution is awareness without engagement. What this looks like. Notice a thought. Don't analyze it. Don't judge it. Don't fix it. Just notice. Thinking is happening. That noticing alone creates space. 4. Non-thinking is a state, not an action. When non-thinking is not something you do. It's something that happens when thinking settles. You don't create calm. You return to calm. This is why relaxation, silence, presence feel natural and effortless. 5. Let feelings be. They help thinking settle. Many people try to stop thinking to escape uncomfortable emotions. When emotions are the body's response to thinking. Resisting emotions keeps thinking alive. Instead, allow the feeling. Don't label it as a problem. Don't try to get rid of it. When emotions are allowed, thinking loses momentum. 6. Stop solving problems in a noisy mind. A major trap. Trying to figure life out while stressed. When insight only comes from a quiet mind. So when overwhelmed, pause. Don't decide. Don't analyze. Clarity always returns after calm. 7. The do-nothing approach. This chapter introduces a radical idea. Sometimes the most powerful action is doing nothing mentally. Not spacing out. Not suppressing. Just resting attention. Being present. Letting the mind settle naturally. 8. You were never meant to control your mind. When you're not failing at mindfulness. You're not broken. You're not bad at mental discipline. The mind was never designed to be controlled. It was designed to think. Freedom comes from understanding, not mastery. Practical ways to apply Chapter 7. 1. In moments of anxiety, don't ask, how do I fix this? Say, this is just thinking. Pause. Breathe. Let it pass. 2. When thoughts loop, stop following the story. Feel your body. Look around the room. Grounding breaks engagement. 3. Before decisions, wait until you feel calm. Don't rush clarity. Peace precedes insight. 4. Daily reminder. Once a day, remind yourself, I don't need to stop thinking. Thinking stops when I stop engaging. In one sentence, you don't stop thinking by controlling your mind. You stop thinking by understanding it. Chapter 8. How can we possibly thrive without thinking? This chapter addresses the natural concern many readers have. If thinking causes suffering, does that mean I shouldn't think at all? How can I function, work, make decisions, or pursue goals without thinking? Nguyen clarifies that thriving doesn't require eliminating thought, but rather changing our relationship to thought. 1. Thinking versus functioning. Nguyen explains the distinction between thinking, believing, overanalyzing, obsessing, and identifying with thoughts. Functioning, practical problem solving and action. You don't need constant thinking to act effectively in life. Many successful actions and decisions come from a calm mind, intuition, and clarity, not forced mental effort. 2. Thought isn't the enemy. Misidentification is. Thoughts themselves are neutral. Suffering comes when we identify with them. Thriving comes when we use thoughts as tools rather than letting them control us. Example. Thought, I might fail in this meeting. Thinking, problematic, I'm doomed, I can't do this. Anxiety. Functional use. I can prepare for this meeting. Productive action. 3. Clarity comes from stillness. Nguyen emphasizes that the most effective actions arise from clarity, not from mental noise. A calm mind sees solutions naturally. Overthinking clouds judgment and wastes energy. Thriving is easier when thoughts are tools, not rulers. A quiet mind is a powerful mind. 4. Intuition and flow are non-thinking states. Many high-performing people describe flow states. Creative work, problem-solving, or decision-making feels effortless. Flow happens when thinking stops controlling perception. Nguyen shows that thriving isn't about more thinking. It's about listening to inner guidance that emerges when mental noise quiets. 5. Thriving in daily life. Nguyen gives examples of practical application. A. Work. Stop overanalyzing. Take action based on current awareness, not mental worry. Decisions made with clarity tend to be more effective. B. Relationships. Don't react automatically to thoughts of judgment or fear. Pause, observe the thought, then act. This reduces unnecessary conflict and fosters connection. C. Goals and ambitions. Don't obsess over how to achieve the outcome. Focus on present action, guided by awareness and insight. Goals are achieved more efficiently when thought isn't compulsively driving anxiety. 6. Thought as a tool. Nguyen encourages seeing thinking as a resource, not a necessity for thriving. Use thought only when needed. Observe when it arises unnecessarily. Let mental chatter pass when it serves no purpose. You thrive not by thinking more, but by thinking less compulsively. 7. The paradox of thriving without thinking. Nguyen summarizes the paradox. Thinking is natural, but identification with thinking causes suffering. Thriving is possible because clarity, intelligence, and action emerge spontaneously when the mind is quiet. The more you stop trying to control your mind, the more naturally life unfolds. 8. Daily practice for thriving without overthinking. Notice unnecessary thoughts. Is this thought helping me act or just spinning? Pause and breathe. Create a small gap between thought and reaction. Trust your awareness and intuition. Take action from calm insight, not mental noise. Observe outcomes. Learn that life flows effectively without compulsive thinking. You can thrive not by eliminating thinking, but by disengaging from compulsive thought and acting from calm clarity. Chapter 9. If we stop thinking, what do we do about our goals, dreams, and ambitions? This chapter tackles a common worry. If thinking causes suffering and clarity comes from non-thinking, how do we plan, set goals, or achieve anything? Won't life fall apart if we stop thinking? Nguyen explains that goals and dreams are still fully achievable, but in a very different way than most people imagine. 1. Goals don't require overthinking. Nguyen emphasizes goals exist outside of the mind's constant chatter. You don't need to obsess, plan excessively, or worry about every detail. True action comes from calm awareness, not mental struggle. Example: a business idea emerges. Overthinking might analyze every risk endlessly. Calm awareness allows you to take inspired steps naturally, without being paralyzed by what-ifs. 2. Stop planning every step. Trying to control every outcome creates stress and mental loops. Nguyen suggests, plan what's necessary, then act from clarity. The mind can contribute to practical logistics, but it does not create fulfillment or insight. Thriving happens when you trust intelligence that arises in the moment, rather than forcing it. 3. Inspired action versus forced effort. Nguyen differentiates two types of action. Type description: result. Forced action comes from worry, analysis, and mental pressure, frustration, burnout, mistakes. Inspired action comes from calm, clear awareness, effective, effortless, aligned with purpose. Goals are achieved not by thinking harder, but by acting from clarity. 4. Dreams are internal before they're external. Nguyen explains, fulfillment and happiness are not outside you. A dream or goal is only meaningful if it aligns with your internal state. Trying to achieve a goal while mentally overactive often leads to stress without fulfillment. Insight. Dreams follow clarity, not frantic thinking. 5. The role of planning. Nguyen does not discourage planning entirely. He clarifies its role. Planning is a tool, not the master. Use thought to organize practical steps. Coordinate actions. Avoid obvious mistakes. But don't mistake planning for the source of results. 6. Let life guide your actions. When thinking is quiet, intuition and insight naturally guide decisions. Opportunities become clearer. Actions flow naturally toward your goals. When? Why though? The universe always supports what aligns with clarity. Stop forcing. Act in alignment with calm awareness. 7. How to practice this daily. Clarify your goal simply. Write it down in one sentence. Step back from mental loops. Ask, am I thinking about this to act or just to worry? Act in small, inspired steps. Take the next obvious action without overplanning. Observe outcomes without attachment. Notice progress without judgment. Trust clarity over effort. Peace guides smarter, more effective choices. 8. Common misunderstandings. Misunderstanding reality. I need constant mental control. Calm awareness produces better decisions. Goals require obsessive planning. Goals are achieved through clarity plus inspired action. Non-thinking equals inaction. Non-thinking equals non-identification. You still act naturally. Key takeaways from Chapter 9. Concept meaning. Calm over chaos. Thriving comes from clarity, not mental noise. Inspired action. Action guided by insight works better than effortful thinking. Planning is a tool that supports, not drives, results. Inner state precedes outer achievement. Fulfillment comes first from non-thinking, then action follows. Trust the process. Life unfolds naturally when you stop forcing it. In one sentence, you can pursue goals and dreams without suffering by acting from clarity, inspired insight, and inner alignment, rather than compulsive thinking or forced effort. Chapter 10. Unconditional Love and Creation. This chapter shifts focus from suffering and thought to how inner awareness can transform relationships, creativity, and life itself. Nguyen emphasizes that love and creativity arise naturally from a calm mind. 1. What is unconditional love? Nguyen defines unconditional love not as something you give or earn, but as a natural state of being, free of judgment, expectation, or condition, present whenever thinking subsides. Key insight. Love is not a reaction to circumstances. It is the natural state of a mind that is no longer entangled in compulsive thinking. 2. Love is always present. Even in moments of anger, fear, or sadness, love is the underlying current. Our thoughts often mask love with judgment, blame, or worry. When thinking quiets, love becomes visible as compassion, acceptance, empathy. When stress, love is not something to achieve. It is revealed when mental noise subsides. 3. Creation emerges from clarity. Creation, innovation, art, problem-solving, productivity is a natural byproduct of a quiet mind. Mental struggle or forced effort blocks creativity. True creation comes from presence, inspiration, flowing awareness. Example: a painter creates effortlessly when fully present, not when overthinking composition. A writer or entrepreneur solves problems in moments of clarity, not in stress. 4. The link between love and creation. Nguyen highlights that love and creation are inseparable. Love opens perception. Clear perception allows inspired action. Inspired action manifests creation. Mental noise narrows perspective and limits creativity. Stillness expands it. 5. How thinking blocks love and creation. Constant thinking leads to judgment of self and others, attachment to outcomes, fear and resistance. These patterns stifle natural intelligence and compassion. By contrast, Observing thought without belief allows love and creativity to flow naturally. 6. Practical application, relationships. Notice mental stories about others. Example, they are wrong, they hurt me. Step back from thinking. Recognize these as thoughts, not truths. Respond from presence. Love arises effortlessly when the mind is calm. Outcome, relationships improve without forcing kindness or resolution. 7. Practical application, work and projects. Approach projects from a still and clear mind. Take inspired action rather than forcing results. Let insights and creativity emerge naturally. Nguyen notes, the best ideas come when the mind is relaxed, not when we try harder. 8. Love for yourself. Many people seek unconditional love from others. Nguyen emphasizes that it begins internally. Accept yourself without judgment. Let thoughts pass without identifying with them. Self-compassion naturally expands outward. The love you experience internally is mirrored externally. 9. Daily practices for love and creation. Observe thoughts without engagement. Create space for calm and clarity. Pause before reacting. Respond to situations with awareness, not mental noise. Notice inspiration. Creative ideas flow naturally in moments of non-thinking. Practice gratitude. Appreciation deepens awareness of love in everyday life. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 10. Concept meaning. Love is inherent. It exists when thinking settles. Creation arises naturally. Productivity and innovation flow from clarity, not effort. Observation, control watching thoughts instead of reacting frees intelligence. Relationships improve. Presence creates natural empathy and connection. Self-love is foundational. Internal acceptance allows external love and creation. In one sentence, unconditional love and inspired creation are revealed when mental noise subsides, allowing natural intelligence, compassion, and creativity to flow effortlessly. Chapter 11. The final integration, living without suffering. This chapter ties together the ideas from the entire book and shows how to live a life free from unnecessary suffering, while still fully engaging in the world. Nguyen emphasizes that the goal is not to eliminate thoughts or avoid life, but to change your relationship with thought so suffering naturally dissolves. 1. Suffering is optional. Throughout the book, Nguyen has explained that pain happens naturally. Suffering is caused by identifying with thought. The key, integration. You don't need to wait for life to change externally. Freedom is always accessible internally. 2. Live inside out. Nguyen highlights the inside-out principle. Your experience of life is created by your mind, not external circumstances. External events do not determine happiness or peace. Your internal response does. Practical implication. You can handle setbacks, stress, and challenges without suffering. Peace is your natural state, regardless of external conditions. 3. Awareness is the core practice. Awareness allows you to notice thought without identifying with it. Disengage from mental noise. Step back from judgment and reaction. Daily practice is simple. Pause, observe thoughts, let them pass. Observe emotions without resistance. This awareness dissolves suffering naturally, rather than trying to fix your mind. 4. Living with clarity and inspiration. Life without suffering is not passive. It's active and inspired. Decision-making flows naturally. Actions are aligned with insight, not fear. Creativity and productivity happen effortlessly. Nguyen emphasizes that thriving doesn't require overthinking. It requires presence and trust in your natural intelligence. 5. Love and connection. Non suffering transforms relationships. Judgments and mental stories no longer dominate. Compassion and empathy arise naturally. Conflicts are handled with clarity rather than reaction. Love becomes a byproduct of inner calm, not something you chase or manufacture. 6. Key practices to integrate daily. Nguyen provides practical steps to make the principles a living reality. Observe thoughts without belief. Remind yourself, thoughts are passing mental events, not truths. Pause before reacting. Stop impulsive reactions. Allow clarity to emerge. Notice emotions without resistance. Emotions reflect thinking. Let them settle naturally. Act from calm awareness. Decisions and actions are more effective when the mind is clear. Trust life and your inner guidance. Stop forcing outcomes. Take inspired steps. Let solutions arise naturally. 7. Understanding the paradox. Trying to eliminate suffering creates more thinking, more suffering. Accepting thought as it is, without engagement, natural peace emerges. This paradox is central to living without suffering. 8. The result, freedom in everyday life. When integrated fully, Nguyen explains, you experience emotional freedom, clarity in decision-making, creativity and inspiration, improved relationships, joy and love as natural byproducts. Life is still active and challenging, but suffering no longer dominates your experience. 9. Key takeaways from Chapter 11. Concept meaning. Suffering is optional. Freedom is always accessible internally. Life is inside out. Your experience depends on mind, not circumstances. Awareness, control, observing thoughts, dissolve suffering. Action comes from clarity. Inspired steps are more effective than forced effort. Love and joy are natural. They arise when mental noise quiets. In one sentence, living without suffering is not about stopping thought or escaping life, but about observing thought, trusting clarity, and allowing love, creativity, and joy to arise naturally. Chapter 12. Nothing is either good or bad. 1. The central insight. Nguyen begins the chapter with a powerful reminder that nothing in life is inherently good or bad. Our thinking is what assigns those labels. He draws from Shakespeare's famous line, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." The point is your judgments and emotional reactions are created by your thoughts about events, not the events themselves. 2. The piano analogy. Nguyen uses a helpful analogy to make this idea more concrete. A piano has 88 keys. None of them is wrong or bad on its own. A key only seems wrong if you expect a specific song to be played and the key doesn't fit. Similarly, life events aren't good or bad in themselves. Your mind assigns meaning based on what you think should happen and what you want to feel. This teaches that good/bad duality lives in the mind, not in reality. 3. How labels create emotional suffering. When we label things bad, we fight them mentally. We resist reality. We amplify anxiety, shame, regret, or fear. And when we label things good, we become attached to outcomes. We fear losing them. We create disappointment when they change or disappear. Nguyen argues this mental labeling fuels emotional highs and lows, keeping us trapped in judgment instead of presence. 4. Life doesn't come with intrinsic labels. The chapter emphasizes that decisions are not inherently right or wrong. Events don't carry moral weight by themselves. Experiences become pleasant or unpleasant only through thinking. For example, two people can respond very differently to the same job loss. One sees liberation, the other despair. This shows how interpretation, not the event itself, shapes emotion. 5. From judgment to curiosity. Instead of assigning good/bad labels, Nguyen suggests shifting to curiosity, observation without judgment, seeking truth rather than validation of beliefs. This opens the door to deeper understanding, greater flexibility, emotional resilience. 6. What this means for daily life. In practice, this shift means A. Let go of rigid good/bad thinking. Stop telling yourself something should be other than it is. B. Recognize emotional experience comes from thought. Feelings are responses to your thinking, not facts about reality. C. Reduce resistance. When you stop resisting what you label bad, emotional tension drops. D. Expand perspective. Seeing events without judgment allows you to notice new possibilities, different vantage points, like viewing a mountain from multiple spots on the trail. Key takeaways from Chapter 12. Idea, explanation. No event is inherently good or bad. Labels arise from thought, not objective reality. Labels create duality, good/bad. Thinking amplifies emotional extremes. Let judgment go. Observing without labeling increases peace. Freedom through reinterpretation. You can experience life without suffering created by labels. In one sentence, nothing in life is intrinsically good or bad. Emotional meaning arises from the way your mind interprets events. Chapter 13. How do you know what to do without thinking? This chapter addresses a deep fear many people have. If I stop relying on thinking, how will I make decisions? How will I know what action to take? Nguyen's core message is simple but profound. You don't lose guidance when thinking quiets. You gain clarity. 1. You're guided by awareness, not thought. Nguyen explains that thinking is not the source of intelligence. Awareness is. When thinking quiets, insight naturally arises. Decisions feel obvious instead of forced. Action becomes intuitive. You don't figure out what to do. You see it. 2. The difference between thought and insight. Nguyen distinguishes two inner experiences. Thought insight. Noisy, repetitive quiet, clear, doubtful certain, emotionally charged calm. Comes from fear, comes from clarity. Thought argues. Insight doesn't need justification. When insight appears, you know what to do without mental debate. 3. Life is always giving feedback. Nguyen emphasizes that. Life continuously shows you the next step. You miss it only when thinking is too loud. Examples. You suddenly feel called to make a phone call. An opportunity naturally appears. A solution clicks without effort. This is natural guidance, not mystical thinking. For children and animals as examples, Nguyen points out, children act without overthinking. Animals function perfectly without mental analysis. They respond to the present moment, natural intelligence, direct perception. Humans already have this capacity. Thinking simply overrides it. 5. Why overthinking creates confusion. Overthinking creates multiple conflicting options, disconnects you from present reality, delays action. When et lie, confusion is not a lack of answers. It's too many thoughts. When thinking settles, confusion dissolves on its own. 6. The role of thought used properly. Nguyen does not say to eliminate thinking entirely. Instead, insight comes first. Thought helps execute the insight. Example. Insight. I should change careers. Thought. Planning steps resumes logistics. Thought is a servant, not the decision maker. 7. Practical daily application. Here's how to apply this chapter in real life. Step 1. Pause. When unsure what to do, stop forcing answers. Step away from mental analysis. Step 2. Quiet the mind. Breathe. Observe thoughts without engagement. Step 3. Notice what feels clear. What action feels calm? Simple, obvious? What option feels heavy and forced? Clarity feels light and natural. 8. Acting without certainty. When highlight, you don't need full certainty. You only need the next clear step. Life unfolds step by step, not all at once. 9. Trust builds through experience. The more you act from clarity, observe positive outcomes, the more you trust your inner guidance, awareness over overthinking. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle of confidence and ease. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 13. Insight meaning. Awareness guides action, not thinking. Insight is quiet, thought is noisy. Confusion equals too much thinking, not lack of answers. Life gives constant feedback if the mind is quiet. Thought executes, awareness decides. In one sentence, you know what to do not by thinking harder, but by quieting the mind and allowing clarity and insight to arise naturally. Chapter 14. How to follow your intuition. This chapter answers a final, crucial question. If awareness guides us better than thinking, how do we actually follow intuition in real life? Nguyen explains that intuition is not something you create or learn. It is something you allow by quieting the mind. 1. What intuition really is. Nguyen clarifies common misconceptions. Intuition is not random emotion. It is not impulsiveness. It is not wishful thinking. Instead, intuition is quiet, calm, neutral, obvious. Intuition doesn't shout. It whispers. 2. Intuition versus fear-based thought. Nguyen draws a clear distinction. Intuition, fear-based thought. Calme urgent. Clear, confusing. Neutral, emotionally charged. Simple, overcomplicated. Present, focused, future-obsessed. If a decision feels panicked or rushed, it's almost always thinking, not intuition. 3. Why most people miss intuition. The reason intuition feels rare is not because it disappears, but because thinking is loud. The mind is constantly narrating. Fear and judgment dominate attention. Intuition is always available, but drowned out by mental noise. 4. How to recognize intuition. Nguyen gives clear markers. It arrives suddenly. It feels obvious, not dramatic. It doesn't need explanation. It feels aligned, not forced. Example: I should call this person. This opportunity isn't right for me. Now is the time to act. There is no internal debate, just clarity. 5. Stop forcing answers. When emphasis, forcing clarity creates confusion. Trying to figure it out blocks intuition. Instead, step back, pause, let thinking settle. Insight arrives when effort stops. 6. Intuition is present moment intelligence. Intuition responds only to what is happening now. Thinking lives in past and future. Intuition lives in the present. When you return attention to now, guidance becomes accessible. 7. Acting on intuition builds trust. At first, following intuition may feel risky because it lacks mental justification. It doesn't guarantee outcomes. When advis, act on small intuitive nudges. Observe results. Build trust gradually. Each time you act from intuition, confidence in it grows. 8. Intuition doesn't promise comfort. It promises alignment. When once, intuition doesn't always choose the easiest path. It chooses the true path. It may, in relationships, prompt difficult conversations, lead to uncertainty, but it always leads toward clarity, peace, and authenticity. 9. Practical daily practice. Nguyen suggests a simple approach. When unsure, pause, breathe, observe thoughts without engagement. Ask gently, what feels clear right now? Take the simplest next step. No overthinking, no forcing. 10. Living intuitively is living simply. Nguyen concludes that intuition simplifies life. Suffering decreases. Decisions feel lighter. Trust in life increases. When intuition leads, thinking becomes supportive, not dominant. Life feels more natural and aligned. Key takeaways from Chapter 14. Principal meaning. Intuition is quiet, not emotional or urgent. Thinking blocks intuition, mental noise hides clarity. Awareness reveals guidance, not effort or analysis. Trust grows through action, start small. Intuition leads to alignment, not necessarily comfort. In one sentence, you follow your intuition not by trying harder, but by quieting the mind, trusting clarity, and taking simple, aligned action. Chapter 15. Creating Space for Miracles. This chapter explains why breakthroughs, healing, clarity, and miracles don't happen through effort or control, but through space. Nguyen's central message is, miracles don't come from doing more, they come from getting out of the way. 1. What Nguyen means by miracles. Nguyen is not talking only about supernatural events. In this context, miracles are sudden clarity, unexpected solution, emotional healing, inner peace, life turning around without force. These moments feel miraculous because they happen without mental effort. 2. Why miracles don't appear when we're thinking. Nguyen explains that thinking tries to control outcomes. Control creates tension. Tension blocks insight and flow. When the mind is crowded with worry, planning, fear, attachment, there is no space for new possibilities to appear. A full mind leaves no room for life to surprise you. 3. Space is created by letting go, not doing. Creating space does not mean forcing positivity, visualizing harder, manifesting with effort. It means letting thoughts pass, releasing resistance, stopping mental interference. When thinking quiets, space opens naturally. 4. Stillness is the gateway. When emphasis, stillness reveals intelligence. Silence allows insight. Calm creates receptivity. This is why answers come in the shower. Clarity appears during walks. Solutions arrive when you stop trying. Miracles appear when the mind is relaxed and open. 5. The role of trust. This chapter highlights trust as essential. Trust in life. Trust in awareness. Trust that you don't need to force outcomes. Trying to control everything signals lack of trust. Letting go creates space for life to respond in unexpected ways. 6. Examples of creating space. Nguyen gives indirect examples, such as letting go of a problem solution appears. Releasing emotional resistance, peace returns. Stopping the chase, opportunity arrives. These feel miraculous because they happen without struggle. 7. What blocks miracles? Common blockers include attachment to outcomes, insisting life should look a certain way, believing every thought, fear of uncertainty. Miracles require openness, not certainty. 8. Practical ways to create space daily. Here's how to apply this chapter in real life. 1. Stop trying to fix everything. When something feels stuck, pause. Stop forcing solutions. 2. Allow uncertainty. Don't rush to mental answers. Uncertainty is fertile ground for insight. 3. Observe thoughts without engagement. Let thoughts pass like clouds. Space opens automatically. 4. Rest in the present moment. Presence dissolves resistance. Miracles live in now, not in mental stories. 9. Why miracles feel rare. When lie, miracles are natural. Resistance is habitual. When resistance drops, miracles don't feel rare. They feel normal. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 15. Insight meaning. Miracles require space, not effort. Thinking blocks flow, stillness allows insight. Letting go creates openness, control closes it. Trust is essential, life responds to openness. Presence invites the unexpected, miracles live in now. In one sentence, miracles occur naturally when you stop mentally interfering with life and allow space for clarity, insight, and unexpected solutions to emerge. Please be part of our success story that we will tell someday by subscribing, liking, and sharing the work of this channel. We want to grow with you from the beginning. Now let's continue to break down the book. Chapter 16, Why Effort Doesn't Create Change. This chapter challenges one of the most deeply conditioned beliefs we have. If I try harder, I'll change. Nguyen explains that true, lasting change does not come from effort, discipline, or willpower. It comes from insight and understanding. 1. The problem with effort. Nguyen defines effort as forcing a different outcome, trying to control thoughts or emotions, resisting what is present. Effort assumes something is wrong with me and must be fixed. This mindset creates tension, frustration, and burnout, not transformation. 2. Effort reinforces the problem. Nguyen explains a key paradox. Trying to stop negative thoughts gives them more attention. Forcing calm increases inner resistance. Fighting habits strengthens them. Effort keeps you mentally engaged with the very thing you want to escape. 3. Change happens through insight, not willpower. Real change occurs when you clearly see how your experience is created. You understand that thoughts create feelings. Identification with thought naturally drops. Once insight occurs, habits fall away. Reactions soften. Peace appears without effort. You don't force understanding. Understanding ends effort. 4. The illusion of self-improvement. Nguyen gently critiques traditional self-help. Overthinking. constant fixing, striving to become better. These approaches imply you're broken. Keep the mind busy. Delay peace. Nguyen suggests you don't need improvement, you need clarity. 5. Effort works for action, not interchange. Important distinction. Effort is useful for physical tasks, exercise, learning skills. Effort does not work for inner peace, emotional freedom, or clarity. Interchange follows realization, not discipline. 6. Letting go creates change automatically. When you stop trying to change, resistance dissolves. Insight surfaces. Emotions settle naturally. This is why peace appears when you stop seeking it. Clarity comes when you stop forcing answers. 7. Everyday example. Trying to be confident. Effort, tension, self-consciousness. Understanding how confidence arises. Calm mind, natural presence, confidence. No forcing required. 8. Practical application. How to apply this chapter. 1. Stop trying to control thoughts. Let them pass without engagement. 2. Notice where you're forcing. Ask, am I trying to change this or understand it? 3. Look for insight instead of techniques. Understanding in struggle. 4. Allow emotions. Feelings pass when not resisted. 9. Why change feels sudden? When et lie. Insight appears suddenly. Change fil instant. Effort was never the cause. This is why breakthroughs feel overnight, though understanding may have been building quietly. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 16. Insight meaning. Effort creates tension, not transformation. Insight creates change without force. Fighting thoughts strengthens them, observation dissolves them. You are not broken, clarity is missing. Letting go allows peace naturally. In one sentence, lasting change happens not through effort or self-control, but through clear insight that naturally dissolves struggle. Chapter 17. Why you don't need to fix yourself. This chapter dismantles one of the core assumptions behind suffering. Something is wrong with me. Nguyen explains that this belief, not your thoughts, habits, or emotions, is what keeps suffering alive. 1. The illusion that you are broken. Nguyen points out that most self-help starts with the idea that you need fixing. This assumption creates constant self-judgment. Trying to fix yourself reinforces the belief that you are flawed. But the truth is, you're not broken. You're simply misunderstanding how your experience is created. 2. Nothing is wrong with you. When emphasis, thoughts arise naturally. Emotions come and go. Human experience fluctuates. These are not problems. They're normal. The problem arises when you judge yourself for having thoughts. You resist emotions. You identify with mental states. 3. Fixing implies resistance. Trying to fix yourself means fighting thoughts, resisting emotions, rejecting the present moment. Resistance keeps attention on the problem, strengthens suffering, blocks clarity. What you resist persists. 4. Insight removes the need for fixing. Change happens when you see that thoughts create feelings. You stop identifying with mental content. Awareness replaces self-judgment. Once this insight is clear, habits fall away naturally. Emotional reactions soften. Peace returns without effort. No fixing required. 5. Self-acceptance is not complacency. Nguyen clarifies a common misunderstanding. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It does not mean staying stuck. It means stopping the inner fight. True growth comes from clarity, not self-attack. 6. The paradox of healing. Nguyen highlights a paradox. Trying to heal keeps you focused on being wounded. Seeing there is nothing wrong allows healing to occur. When the belief, I need fixing, drops, peace emerges naturally. 7. Everyday example. Anxiety. Trying to fix anxiety, more anxiety. Understanding anxiety comes from thought, calm returns. The moment understanding appears, struggle ends. 8. Practical application. How to apply this chapter. 1. Notice self-judgment. When you think, I shouldn't feel this way, recognize it as thought, not truth. 2. Stop fixing, start observing. Let thoughts and emotions pass without resistance. 3. Replace fixing with understanding. Ask, what am I misunderstanding right now? 4. Allow yourself to be human. Fluctuations are normal, not failures. 9. What happens when you stop fixing yourself? Nguyen explains you'll notice less mental tension, greater compassion for yourself, more natural motivation, authentic change. Peace becomes the starting point, not the goal. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 17. Insight meaning. You are not broken, no fixing required. Fixing creates resistance, acceptance dissolves struggle. Understanding replaces effort, insight creates change. Self-acceptance enables growth, not stagnation. Peace is your natural state, not something to earn. In one sentence, you don't need to fix yourself. Understanding how your experience works naturally dissolves suffering and restores peace. Chapter 18. The end of suffering is not what you think. This chapter corrects a major misunderstanding about freedom and peace. Most people believe, when suffering ends, I'll always feel good. Nguyen explains that the end of suffering is not the absence of pain or negative emotions. It is the absence of resistance to them. 1. Suffering versus pain. Nguyen makes a crucial distinction. Pain, suffering. Natural part of life, psychological resistance. Temporary, prolonged by thinking. Physical or emotional sensation, mental story about sensation. Pain may arise. Suffering is optional. 2. The end of suffering is not constant happiness. When emphasis, freedom does not mean perpetual joy. Emotions will still come and go. Life still includes loss, fear, and uncertainty. The difference is, emotions pass quickly. You no longer fight them. They don't define you. Peace is not the absence of storms. It's knowing you're not the storm. 3. Why seeking an end state creates more suffering. Many people imagine enlightenment, permanence, never feeling bad again. When et lie, this expectation is created by thought. Chasing it becomes another form of suffering. It keeps peace in the future instead of now. True freedom is available in the present moment. 4. Suffering ends through understanding, not achievement. The end of suffering is not a milestone, is not earned, does not require self-improvement. It happens when you see how thought creates suffering. You stop identifying with mental stories. Understanding dissolves suffering naturally. 5. Emotions lose their power. When suffering ends, emotions still arise, but they no longer overwhelm. They pass without gripping the mind. Fear, sadness, anger become sensations, not identities. 6. The freedom of allowing. Nguyen highlights allowing as the key. Allow thoughts to come and go. Allow emotions to rise and fall. Allow life to be as it is. Allowing removes resistance, and resistance is suffering. 7. Everyday example. Feeling sadness. Resisting sadness, suffering. Allowing sadness, peace underneath. The emotion completes itself when not resisted. 8. Practical application. How to apply this chapter. 1. Stop trying to end emotions. Let emotions move naturally. 2. Notice resistance. Ask, am I feeling this or fighting this? 3. Drop the story. Feel the sensation without the mental narrative. 4. Rest in awareness. Notice the calm space in which emotions appear. 9. What life looks like without suffering. When et lie, life feels lighter. Challenges are manageable. Emotional resilience increases. Peace becomes stable, not dependent on circumstances. You become emotionally free, not emotionally numb. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 18. Insight meaning. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Freedom is not equal to constant happiness, emotions still arise. Resistance creates suffering, allowing dissolves it. Understanding ends struggle, not achievement. Peace is always present underneath experience. In one sentence, the end of suffering is not the absence of pain, but the end of resistance to life as it is. Chapter 19. Nothing has gone wrong. This chapter delivers one of the most relieving insights in the entire book. Nguyen's core message is simple. Even when life feels painful, confusing, or off track, nothing has actually gone wrong. 1. The belief that something is wrong. Nguyen explains that much of our suffering comes from the belief. I messed up. I should be further by now. This shouldn't be happening. These are thoughts, not facts. When believed, they create guilt, regret, fear, self-blame. 2. Life is always unfolding correctly. When emphasis, life doesn't make mistakes. Every moment is a natural outcome of prior moments. Nothing is out of place. This doesn't mean everything feels good. It means nothing is wrong at the level of life itself. 3. Pain does not mean failure. When pain does not mean you failed. Confusion does not mean you're lost. Difficulty does not mean you're broken. These experiences are part of being human, not evidence of error. 4. Resistance creates the feeling of wrongness. The feeling that something has gone wrong comes from comparing life to mental expectations, believing life should look different, resisting what is happening. When resistance drops, the sense of wrongness dissolves. 5. Letting go of the past. Nguyen points out, regret exists only in thought. The past cannot be fixed. Peace is only available now. The idea that I should have done better keeps suffering alive. 6. Clarity arises when self-blame ends. When you stop blaming yourself, clarity returns. Insight emerges. Forward movement becomes natural. Self-blame blocks intelligence. Acceptance restores it. 7. Everyday example. Feeling behind in life. Thought, I'm late. I failed. Reality, life unfolded exactly as it did. The suffering comes from the story, not the timeline. 8. Practical application. How to apply this chapter. 1. Notice something went wrong thoughts. See them as mental stories, not truth. 2. Drop comparison. Your path is not supposed to match anyone else's. 3. Accept the present fully. Peace appears when resistance ends. 4. Take the next clear step, without guilt or pressure. 9. What changes when you realize nothing is wrong? Nguyen explains you'll feel relief, forgiveness toward yourself, renewed energy, openness to what's next. Life begins to flow again when self-judgment ends. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 19. Insight meaning. Nothing has gone wrong. Life unfolds naturally. Pain is not equal to failure. It's part of being human. Self-blame creates suffering. Acceptance restores clarity. The past exists only in thought. Peace is now. You're not behind. There is no universal timeline. In one sentence, the belief that something has gone wrong creates suffering. Realizing that life is unfolding exactly as it is brings peace and clarity. Chapter 20. There's nothing to figure out. This chapter targets one of the most exhausting habits of the mind, the need to constantly figure life out. Nguyen's core message is, peace does not come from finding better answers. It comes from realizing you were never meant to figure life out. 1. The mind's addiction to figuring things out. Nguyen explains that the mind constantly asks, why did this happen? What does this mean? How do I fix this? What should I do next? These questions seem productive, feel necessary, but actually keep the mind spinning. Most of this thinking does not lead to action or clarity. It leads to anxiety. 2. Figuring out is a form of control. Trying to figure everything out is an attempt to control uncertainty, predict outcomes, avoid discomfort. But life is unpredictable, dynamic, always changing. Trying to mentally control, it creates frustration. 3. Clarity appears when you stop figuring. When emphasis, clarity is not constructed. Insight is revealed. When you stop trying to solve life, answers arise naturally. The next step becomes obvious. Confusion dissolves. The answer appears when the question drops. 4. Understanding versus mental analysis. When distingue, mental analysis circular, draining. Understanding quiet, obvious. Understanding comes from seeing how thought works, recognizing that experience is created internally. Once understood, the need to analyze disappears. 5. Why overthinking feels necessary but isn't. The mind believes, if I stop thinking, everything will fall apart. When these life functioned before you analyzed it. Your body functions without mental effort. Intelligence operates naturally. Thinking is helpful for tasks, not for inner peace. 6. Everyday example. A relationship problem. Trying to figure out who's right tension. Letting go of analysis clarity on what to say or do. Action becomes simple when thought settles. 7. Practical application. How to live this chapter. 1. Notice the urge to figure things out. See it as a habit, not a necessity. 2. Pause instead of analyzing. Allow uncertainty without rushing to answers. 3. Let the mind settle. Clarity comes naturally with space. 4. Take the next obvious step. No life plan required. 8. Nothing needs solving about you. When Zayn fought, you're not a problem. Life is not a puzzle. Peace is not hidden behind answers. Peace is present when the search ends. 9. What happens when you stop figuring? Nguyen explains you'll notice. Less anxiety, quicker decisions, more presence, greater trust in life. Life feels simpler, not because it changed, but because thinking stopped interfering. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 20. Insight meaning. Figuring out creates anxiety, not clarity. Control is an illusion. Life unfolds naturally. Insight arises in stillness, not analysis. You're not a problem, nothing to fix or solve. The next step is enough, no master plan needed. In one sentence, peace arrives when you stop trying to mentally solve life and allow clarity to reveal itself naturally. Chapter 21. Freedom is always available. This chapter delivers one of the book's most empowering realizations. Freedom is not something you earn, reach, or unlock in the future. It is available in every moment. Nguyen explains that freedom is not dependent on circumstances, but on whether or not we are identified with thought. 1. Why freedom feels distant. Nguyen explains that freedom feels far away because we believe, I need to fix myself first. Life has to change before I can be free. I'll be free when I understand everything. These beliefs place freedom in the future, where it can never be experienced. 2. Freedom is the absence of identification. Nguyen defines freedom as not believing every thought, not being trapped in mental stories, not resisting the present moment. Freedom appears the instant. A thought is seen as a thought. Identification drops. Nothing external needs to change. 3. Freedom exists even in difficult moments. When emphasis, freedom does not require comfort. Freedom can coexist with pain. Freedom is the space around experience. Even in grief, fear, or uncertainty, awareness remains untouched. Peace is still accessible beneath the experience. 4. Why you keep missing freedom. You miss freedom when you argue with thoughts. You try to change emotions. You seek peace through outcomes. Freedom is subtle. It's the stopping of struggle, not a dramatic feeling. 5. The choice is always now. When et lie, you can't choose freedom later. You can only choose now, the moment you stop resisting, stop believing the story, stop trying to escape. Freedom reveals itself immediately. 6. Everyday example. Feeling stressed at work. Thought, I can't handle this. Seeing it as thought, instant relief. The situation remains, suffering drops. 7. Practical application. How to live this chapter. 1. Notice identification. Ask, am I believing this thought right now? 2. Stop arguing with experience. Let what is be. 3. Rest in awareness. Notice the calm space behind thoughts. 4. Return often. Freedom isn't maintained. It's rediscovered moment by moment. 8. Freedom is simple, not dramatic. When que la vie fit, freedom may feel ordinary. It may feel quiet. It may feel subtle, but its impact is profound. Emotional resilience, clarity, ease. 9. What life feels like with accessible freedom. When et lie, reactions soften. Choices feel lighter. Peace becomes stable. Life feels less threatening. You stop living in survival mode. 10. Key takeaways from Chapter 21. Insight meaning. Freedom is always now, not future-based. Identification creates suffering, awareness dissolves it. Nothing external is required, freedom is internal. Freedom coexists with pain, not dependent on comfort. Rediscovered moment to moment, not maintained. In one sentence, freedom is always available the moment you stop identifying with thought and allow life to be as it is. Chapter 22. The mind will keep talking. This chapter tackles a common misconception. If I quiet my mind, all thoughts will stop. Nguyen explains that the mind never stops producing thoughts, and that's completely normal. The goal is not to stop thinking, but to change your relationship with thought. 1. Thoughts are automatic. Nguyen emphasizes, thoughts are a natural function of the brain. They arise continuously, often without reason. Trying to stop them creates resistance, which increases mental chatter. The mind is like a radio. It will always produce noise. 2. Why thinking feels problematic. The problem isn't thought itself. It's believing every thought. This is dangerous fear. I'm not enough shame. Life is wrong frustration. Belief in thought turns neutral brain activity into suffering. 3. Observing thoughts without engagement. Nguyen explains the solution. Notice thoughts as they arise. Recognize, this is just a thought. Do not try to push them away. Observation creates space. Mental noise continues. Suffering drops. Clarity appears. For thought will never fully stop. When stress, even enlightened individuals experience thought. Silence is temporary. Peace is not the absence of thought, but the absence of belief in thought. The mind will keep talking, and that is okay. 5. The relationship with thought matters more than thought itself. Key insight. You cannot control thought. You can control whether you buy into it. Suffering ends when you stop identifying with thought. Example. A critical thought arises. I can't handle this. Observation. That's just a thought. Insight, emotional tension dissolves. 6. Everyday example. During stress. Thought. I'm failing at everything. Typical response. Panic, struggle, or overthinking. New response. Nguyen's method. Observe the thought. Recognize it as mental noise. Let pass. Result. Clarity and calm remain, even if thought persists. 7. Practical daily application. How to live this chapter. 1. Notice the mind talking. Observe without judgment. 2. Label thoughts as thoughts. Say silently, that's a thought. 3. Avoid engagement. Don't argue, analyze, or resist. 4. Return to presence. Awareness is always available behind the mind's chatter. 8. Key takeaways. Insight meaning. Thoughts never stop normal brain function. Believing thoughts creates suffering. Observation dissolves it. Silence is temporary. Peace is independent of thought. Relationship matters, not content. Watch, don't react. Awareness is always behind thought. Your natural calm remains. In one sentence, the mind will always produce thoughts, but freedom comes when you stop believing them and rest in awareness. Chapter 23. The only thing that can hurt you. This chapter uncovers one of the core truths about human suffering. Nothing outside of your mind can truly hurt you. The only thing that can hurt you is believing your thoughts. Nguyen explains that physical events, other people's actions, and life circumstances cannot create true suffering. Only thoughts about those events can. 1. The source of emotional pain. Nguyen distinguishes between events, neutral occurrences in the world. Thoughts about events, what actually creates emotional pain. Example. Someone criticizes you. Event. Words are spoken. Thought. I am not good enough. Suffering arises. The event itself is neutral. Your mind adds the hurt. 2. Thought versus reality. Nguyen emphasizes, reality is just what is happening. Thought interprets reality and attaches meaning. Believing thought makes the interpretation feel real and painful. The mind turns neutral facts into emotional injury. 3. Why we believe thoughts are real. The mind is habitually convinced of its story. This is true. This is dangerous. This is wrong. Belief in thought is automatic, which is why suffering feels inevitable. 4. Awareness is the only protection. When et lie, awareness sees thought as thought. Awareness recognizes, this is mental noise, not reality. Awareness prevents suffering before it arises. You can't stop thoughts, but you can stop believing them. 5. Everyday example. Work setback. Event, project failed. Thought, I am incompetent, suffering. Awareness, that's just a thought, pain dissolves. Insight, you can act clearly without being hurt emotionally. Even repeated setbacks cannot hurt you when you disengage from thought. 6. The paradox of protection. Nguyen points out, seeking to protect yourself externally increases fear. Real protection is internal, seeing thoughts clearly. Once you see thoughts as mental events, external circumstances lose power over your emotions. Your inner clarity is stronger than any external challenge. 7. Practical application. How to live this chapter. 1. Notice when you feel hurt. Ask, am I hurt by the event or by my thinking about it? 2. Label thought as thought. Mentally say, this is a thought, not reality. 3. Step back. Observe the mental story without engaging emotionally. 4. Respond from clarity. Act if needed, but without suffering or fear. 8. Key takeaways. Insight meaning. Only thought can hurt you. Events are neutral. Belief in thought creates suffering. Observation dissolves it. Awareness is protection, not avoidance. External control is illusory. Inner clarity is real. Clarity allows calm action even in challenges. In one sentence, the only thing that can truly hurt you is believing your thoughts. Awareness removes their power. Chapter 24. Everything is perfect. This chapter reveals one of the deepest insights in the book. Everything in life is unfolding perfectly, exactly as it should, even events we perceive as negative or challenging. Nguyen explains that perfection is not about outcomes matching our desires, but about life flowing without resistance. 1. What perfect really means. When feet, perfect does not mean good or ideal. Perfect means life is complete in every moment. Every event is exactly what it needs to be for insight, growth, or understanding. Perfection is a perspective, not a condition of circumstances. 2. Why we don't see perfection. Humans typically see imperfection because we compare reality to expectations. We resist what is happening. We believe life should be different. Resistance blocks the recognition of natural perfection. 3. Challenges are part of the flow. When problems are neutral events. Perceived setbacks are opportunities to notice thought. Life's imperfections are part of the natural unfolding of experience. Everything serves the purpose of revealing awareness. 4. The role of awareness. Perfection is revealed through awareness, not effort. Awareness sees life exactly as it is. Awareness notices thought without identifying. Awareness recognizes that what appears wrong is neutral. Peace comes from noticing this perfection, not from changing events. 5. Everyday example. Traffic jam. Thought, this is terrible. I'm late. Suffering. Awareness, it's just a traffic jam. Nothing is wrong. Calm. Insight, every event is neutral. Resistance is optional. Even frustration can exist without disrupting inner peace. 6. Practical application. How to live this chapter. 1. Notice resistance. Ask, am I resisting reality or accepting it? 2. Shift perspective. See events as neutral, neither good nor bad. 3. Trust life's flow. Understand that life unfolds exactly as it needs to. 4. Rest in awareness. Perfection is obvious when thought is observed and released. 7. Key takeaways. Insight meaning. Everything is unfolding perfectly. Life is complete as it is. Resistance blocks recognition. Acceptance reveals perfection. Events are neutral judgments create suffering. Awareness reveals flow, not effort or control. Peace exists in every moment, not dependent on outcomes. In one sentence, everything is perfect, not because life matches your desires, but because awareness reveals the natural unfolding of every moment. Chapter 25, the end of the story. This final chapter serves as a conclusion and integration of all previous lessons. Nguyen's central message: life is not a story you need to figure out, fix, or control. It simply is, and freedom, peace, and clarity are always available when you stop believing your thoughts. 1. Life is not a problem to solve. Nguyen reminds us, we often treat life as a problem. We try to force outcomes, control events, or fix ourselves. This mental framing creates suffering. The end of the story is realizing life is not broken. You do not need to fix it. 2. All lessons lead to this moment. Nguyen ties together prior chapters. Thought creates suffering. Stop believing thoughts. Effort cannot create interchange. Understanding does. Freedom is always available. It's internal. Life is perfect. Nothing is wrong. Miracles happen in space. Stop forcing outcomes. The story ends when you see through all mental assumptions. 3. Awareness is the ending. The end of a story is not an event. It's a state of awareness. Calm beneath thought. Clarity beneath confusion. Peace beneath emotion. This awareness is the timeless backdrop of life, always present. 4. The mind will keep talking. That's okay. When emphasis, thoughts will never stop. Life will always present challenges. Suffering will arise if we believe thought. But you are not the story. You are the observer of it. 5. Freedom is your natural state. The end of the story is also the recognition that freedom is not a reward or a destination. Freedom exists in every moment. You can always return to awareness, no matter what happens. Life continues, but you're not bound by thought anymore. 6. Practical application. How to live this chapter. 1. Step back. See life as it is, without forcing outcomes. 2. Observe thought. Recognize stories as mental patterns, not reality. 3. Rest in awareness. Notice the calm, timeless space beneath mental noise. 4. Live with openness. Engage in life fully, without needing it to match your story. 7. Everyday example. Conflict at work. Old story. This is unfair. I need to fix it. Stress. New approach. Observe thoughts, respond calmly. Situation handled naturally. Life unfolds. Story continues, but suffering does not. 8. Key takeaways. Insight meaning. Life is not a problem, nothing to fix. Awareness is the end. Calm under thought. Freedom is always present, not a destination. Stories are optional. Observation dissolves suffering. Peace is natural, not earned or achieved. In one sentence, the end of the story is the realization that life is always unfolding perfectly, and your natural state of awareness, peace, and freedom is always available, independent of thought or circumstance.